Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Hobby Dude 007 channel. Today we're going to take a look at scratch building a basic stock car chassis. We're going to be looking at different scales, different manufacturers, and different wheelbases. Stick around. Let's have some fun. Wow. Wow, this is great. Honey, I finally did it. I finally have enough models. Ah! No! Never have this nightmare. Subscribe to the Hobby Dude 007 channel now, where there's always room for more models. Thank you for your support. Okay, I've gotten a few emails, requests, as well as I think one, I know of one anyway, after one of the videos that's requested, how do I do my shop or diorama frames, stock car frames. So I want to go over that, and we'll build one real quick. And there's a few things you're going to want to know first. This is a little more modern chassis, and we'll touch on this in a little bit. But you need to determine what chassis you're going to build. You can go online and get dimensions, break out your scale ruler, but I'm going to show you the way I do it that, well, it's really easy for me without having to build a jig or anything. You've got a template made for you already, and you see this is nice and flat and level and all that stuff. But we need to first find out, what do we want to build? Do we want to build a Banjo Matthews rear steer? Do we want to build a Laughlin or front steer? Or do we want to build like a Dillon offset chassis, something that you would see in ASA and some of the road racers? So we'll look at each of these real quick, and then we'll look at the accuracy of it. And we're going to be doing this. I've got scale rulers in a number of scales. Let me put this paper down here real quick. This will be easier to see. I have a rule. This is a 1/24th scale, and since we're going to be building a 1/24th scale chassis, we're going to be using this exclusively. As you can see, this puppy is pretty old and almost used up. But I've got these in 1/25th, 1/32nd, and 1/48th as well. And I'll show you how we're going to use those here shortly. And this one, you'll notice you've got inches. So you have scale, 1/24th scale in inches, and on the other side, you have it in feet. So you can do it either way. But let's take a look first at a Banjo Matthews chassis. And since we're doing it in 24th scale, we're going to use the old monogram chassis. And I'm putting this piece in here for a reason. I'll show you that in just a minute, because we want to make sure it's accurate. And by the way, if you decide you want to do it in 25th scale instead of 24th scale, grab you one of your old AMT kits of the Banjo, the Ford kits. That, as you can see, this is the Banjo chassis as well. This one is just in 25th scale, which on a 24th scale ruler is about a 3-inch difference, but I think in 25th it's a 5-inch difference. You notice how much shorter that is, if I can get out of my light there. And when we line it up, the frame rails, oops, right there, the frame rails are about, that's probably about 3 scale inches shorter. And you can see the nose there too is shorter as well. Of course, they've got the extension on the 24th scale. But the first thing we want to do is make sure that this is accurate. And how we're going to do that is center of the spindle where the jack screw is here. If you can see that jack screw bolt there. What we're going to do is we're going to put that right on. Let me get back here where I can see it. One of these yellow lines right here. Right there. And where the rear axle mounts right here, I've already made a mark right there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to line that up. We're going to take our 25th scale ruler. Now, a Winston Cup car at this era, and the Cup cars have a 110-inch wheelbase. So we're going to go inches, and we're going to line that up on that mark back here. And where did it go? There it is. And we're going to come down and put it right there. And look at that. That's where our, oops, it slid off a little bit right there. 110 inches, 0 to the center right where our mark is there, where the rear end would be. So we know that this chassis was built accurately or molded in a 110-inch wheelbase. And we can do the same thing with the Laughlin chassis real quick. We want to make sure that we're accurate on everything, and this is one of the Laughlin. We're going to line that up. Sorry about that, didn't mean to bump the camera. Right on that line. And hopefully you can see this a little better. Center chassis is right there. And right there. You know what? Let me put this paper back down here so you can see the ruler a little easier. I've got my mark there on that, and that's going to be our right on that yellow line there. And as you can see, we're at a 110-inch wheelbase, and to the center here of where the rear end is going to be 0. So we know this one is accurate as well. If you wanted to do, the team I was on ran both Camaros and Novas. So you had 108 and 110-inch wheelbase, 108-inch. So what you would do is, most of these things when they were built, I know I'm very familiar with the Laughlin because the team I was on, that's what we ran, were comprised of the front clip, the rear clip, and then the center. And you could take 5 inches or whatever inches to get your wheelbase out right here in the main frame rails, the side rails, and that would bring the car in enough to make your wheelbase accurate for the rules. I'm going to take this out. Now, by the way, these portions here and this cross member are part of the main frame to begin with. The only thing that's a separate piece is these trailing arms, or truck arms as they're called. Those are separate pieces. Now, something else you'll want to make a decision on is Monogram and Revell made some changes over time as the chassis updated. You'll notice on this older one, the newer one, these bars are round that come up and connect to the front clip right here. You see how they go right into the main frame there, and then back here as well. But these were round back here, and then you've got this flat piece here. But in the later cars, these were rectangular. So they went from the round tubes to the flat, and then you still have the round in the rear. So honestly, for a shop diorama or a chassis, you could do either one. This one is not really finished, and you see the difference here in the chassis. This one you've got where it comes in, and then they go down to the rear clip. Whereas with the little more modern ones, and this was modeled after one of the later kits, and you see here how these go inward and then down to the main. This is not designed to stack, but you get the point here. And the fuel cell, you notice, is moved far forward or further forward, whereas with the Laughlin and the Banjo, they set a little bit further back. But you see how all of this lines up and drops right on there. And when we get around to the front, you see how these, you see how these line right up there as well. And this is basically the template that I used for that. And while we're on this modern one, let's check the wheelbase on it real quick. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same. Honestly, I've never done this one, so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it will be. Center spindle, we'll put that on that yellow right there. And we'll go to the center, excuse me. There's the rear axle. Oh, that one was easier than the others. Yeah, 110. There's the center of the axle at 0. So 110-inch wheelbase there. And this is, by the way, basic chassis. A lot of these manufacturers, whether it was Dillon, Laughlin, Banjo, it doesn't matter. You could order the basic chassis and build your own roll cage and reinforcements around the basic. NASCAR had some say in that on the rules and all, but you could kind of do your own thing. Today, that's a whole lot different, but that gives you an idea how and what we're going to be doing there. And as we get into building, I know I'm forgetting something here. As we get into building, I want us to look at what plastic we're going to need. And I usually use kind of a Mod Podge of everything, Plastruct, Evergreen, I mean, you name it. And the tools we're going to need before I get into the plastic, we're going to need that 1/24th scale ruler. Put that back down there. We're going to need our 24th scale ruler. I use a dial caliper to get some measurements off the chassis that we're going to be using as our model or template, so to speak. But you don't have to have this. I'm going to give you the dimensions of what I have measured on the car. For example, this main frame rail back here is, as you can see, it's about just over 80 thousandths, which is about a 2-inch in scale. And I'll show you how to do that. Well, we'll do it right here. We've got 80 thousandths on here. Let me drop that to 80, right on 80 thousandths. And we're going to put that on our inches there at 0. And as you can see, that's 2 inches. Well, I don't know if you can see it, but it's 2 inches. And so 80 thousandths is pretty much going to work for about everything, but really invaluable there. And here's the plastic we're going to be using on building the frame. I've already measured this out, so hopefully this will help. Like I said, I usually do both a mix of evergreen and plastruct, but for the purpose of making it easier on the numbers and all, I'm just going to use the evergreen. 40 by 80 thousandths, 40,000 by 80 thousandths, which is number 144. Number 146 is 40 by 125 thousandths, and I'll get into where these go in each of them as we go along. Then we've got number 166, which is 80 by 125. Now that's going to be our main frame rails, the basic, just for a basic chassis, that's all we need. And then we've got some 80 thousandths rod, which is number 212, and number 222 rod, which is a little bit smaller. And it's going to depend on the chassis you're going to use, but and again, that's number 144, and these are all in evergreen, which is 40 thousandths by 80 thousandths. 146, 40 thousandths by 125 thousandths, 80 by 125, which is number 166, and then the plastic rod number 212, which is 80 thousandths, and number 222, which is 62 thousandths or 116. So what we're going to want to do first is figure out, are we building this for like a Camaro? If we are, well, this is the easiest way to do it. We're going to take our chassis and we're going to measure here. And we see that is 70 inches down that frame rail. As you see there, that's 70 inches. Well, I'll make it a little easier here. And I know for some reason I'm forgetting something, but anyway, that's 70 inches on the side frame rails. Now, if you were going to do a Camaro that's a 108-inch wheelbase or 105-inch wheelbase, what you would do is just shorten this that many scale inches. That way your front clip and rear clip would still be the same. So 70 inches. And sorry, I keep hitting the camera stand. And by the way, if I keep doing that, I've got a new camera stand and I've got it in a new location. And you would think that would make it easier, but I'm not too sure about that at this moment. Oh, you know what? I left my chopper. Well, it's covered up. Bear with me just a sec. I'll be right back. I got to get one of my main tools here. Okay, guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. I had my chopper on the workbench. Unfortunately, it was covered up, and I forgot to uncover it ahead of time. This is made by Northwest Shortline, which is a train company. And as you can see, it's called the Chopper. And for great straight cuts. And it also, you see these little things up here. You can swing these around. It comes with a couple of little things for 45-degree, different angles that you can turn. And some company makes one of these where the razor blade, as you see, it's got a razor blade here. And what you do is on this, I can't remember what brand it is, this swings to different degrees, but I've used one and I've discovered that what it does is it kind of cuts, instead of a straight angle, it kind of cuts a little bit off of it. But I really like my chopper. I've had this a number of years now. Like I said, it's from Northwest Shortline, and once you get like our we're going to be cutting our frame rail here in a second. It's a nice straight cut all the way down. Let me get this back out of the way there. I shouldn't have loosened that, I guess. And the other tool we're going to need, and I forgot to grab it and show it to you, is just a standard, you know, the little hole puncher, like for a ring binder or something, and I'm not talking about the great big one, just the little single hole puncher that you just pop. And we're going to get some thin sheet plastic, and when it comes time to do our spring buckets here and for the rear, that's the way we're going to be making those. And they are actually, I've measured those out, and they are absolutely to scale. But let's go ahead and get our frame cut. Now what we're going to do first is, let's take a look at our chassis. We've got our dimensions. We know that this is 80 thousandths, and these down here, we measured that a while ago. And you see I'm hoping you can see the actual frame. This is sheet metal up through here, of course, but here's your frame, and that overhangs a little bit, so we're going to get our measurement there. And we're at 80 thousandths, so we're looking pretty good there. And the height of it is going to be, usually the frame rails are about in the raw. Now a lot of these have the overhung sheet metal here, but the main frame rails are usually about I think they're about 3.5 inches, and I'm trying to remember back to our cars, and then the as far as the height goes, and then the width was almost like a 2x4, but a little bit less. I think it was about 3 3/4 inches or 3.5 inches, something like that. But like I was saying earlier, the size we want to use is 80 thousandths by 125 thousandths. So we're going to take one of these out. We know we've already measured this and our side frame rails, and by the way, you can see there, that's spot on, and height wise right on there too. And we've already measured for accuracy as far as this Laughlin chassis goes. And we're going to be doing a let's do 110 inch. So we'll keep it simple this time. So we're going to do 70 inches. So let's get our chopper down here. We know that's our starting point. And like I said, this is 80 by 120. Where's our inches? We're going to convert those over. And there is 70. Ooh. Now, being right out of the manufacturer, that's not exactly a straight cut. So we're going to make it a straight cut. And there we go. All right. And we're going to line this up on 0. And then we're going to go out to 70 inches, which is right there. Make our cut. And let's take a look now. 0 to exactly 70 inches. Now, the cool thing is, once you made the first one, and keep in mind for both sides of the chassis, you're going to do 2 of them. So what we'll do this time is we'll drop that down. We'll put that right up against the razor blade. Raise it back up. Well, I guess I should have done that. All right, there we go. Now, I'm going to hold that in place. I'm going to bring this one up right dead even, as you see. With this one, make another cut. There's our 2 frame rails. And we're going to do this for all of the parts all the way through the chassis. And again, instead of building a jig and going through all of that stuff, we're just going to make this real simple. So we're going to go from there to there. And I'm going to use my dial caliper here. And that needs to be, and here we'll do it with the ruler this way too, in inches. From that corner in needs to be 14 inches. And let's just double check to see if that's what we measured here. And indeed it is 14 inches. So we're going to be using the same frame rail. Come up and go. Well, if I can get my caliper out of the way. Everything getting in the way here. And we're going to go 14 inches, which is right, oops. There. And again, we're going to lay that right up against there. And be careful, because you do have a razor blade right there underneath your finger, so don't get carried away. And we'll cut our angles on this a little bit later, and that's a lot easier than you would think too. But we'll get our rough angles. I just want our rough stuff done here first. And by the way, if you ever want to check the width, where we're going to be laying this out is going to be about 60 inches across, and 60 inches in scale is about, hold on here, I'm going to tell you, is about 2.5 inches on the cutting mat. So we're going to go, and I'll show you the way I'm setting this up here as we go. We're going to come over 2.5 inches, which will be right about there. And we're using the grids here, as you can see. And I'm just going to lay these kind of in the position that they're going to be. And like I said, I'll show you how we're going to cut these, and you're starting to see it coming together already, but I'm going to put these aside over here in this configuration. That way I know where what is. And then we'll go to the next thing. And we can do the front clip first, we can do the rear clip first. It doesn't really matter. Let's just go ahead and do the front clip while we're at it. Coming up, trying to find the easiest place to do this, that I'm not in my own way. Okay, we're just getting our lengths first. And I always double check these in the inches there too. That one coming up is about, I'm thinking that's about 13 inches. Let's make sure our measurement on our dial caliper is the same. It is, so we're going to do those next. And as you can see, this is the way we're going to do the entire chassis all the way through. We're going to line up on 0 there. Oops, inches. We'll line up on 0. We're going to go to 11, 12, 13 inches right there. And we know that's the mark it's going to be. And again, you can see we have the exact size. And these are going to go over here. These are going to be at our upward angle. Now these are going to be really short ones right here. This is, to me, this is the most tedious. That's about 10 inches. I usually allow this one about 11 inches, about an extra inch because of the angles I'm going to have to put in it. So we're going to make it 11 inches. And you can adjust these as you go. It's no big deal. All right. I'm going to go to a higher speed here in a minute, guys, so you can see what's going on without having to just sit and watch all of this slowly go through. So I'm going to go ahead and continue until we get all of our pieces together. And always double check everything once you cut it. Make sure they're going to be the same size. See, that one's just a little bit. And how I can fix that is I'll take my sanding stick and I can take that down just a little. I could shave that off with a chopper, but I don't really see the sense in that. And still just a tick off, so let's go ahead and shave it a little bit. We're going to right about there. Or you can cut a fresh one. It really is up to you. Because you do want them exactly the same size on both sides. And there we go. I'm going to continue to do this, and I'm going to continue to do it here on camera. And I'll just give you some music to listen to while we knock out the rest of it. Then we'll take a look at it before we start shaping and gluing everything together. Stick around. Okay guys, so we've got all of our parts cut out for the most basic of the Laughlin chassis. And as you can see, and by the way, there are 25 individual cuts. This is built just like you would a real chassis, where all the bins and individual sections are here. You'll see down through here, all of that stuff. And then the frame rails. Now the next thing I want to do is check and make sure that everything we have here is the right scale and size that it's going to be here. You don't want to make it too small. It'd be like putting doing a diorama and putting a 32nd scale chassis in a 24th scale thing. You don't want it to look off. You want it to be as accurate as possible. I'm going to get my camera mounted back up here and hopefully not hit it again. Anyway, so what I want to do is I want to start by, we'll take this center piece out here, and you know the bar that runs across here, the trailing arms, and we'll get to the trailing arms and all later, but I want to lay that right up against here. I'm going to get a little closer there so it's a nice tight fit, and you can see we're good there. So we've got our length or width of the chassis is going to be accurate. We've got this cut, and remember we just measured that with a scale ruler across here and made our cut. So it's not really hard at all. 50, about from the inside there, about 56 inches, or scale inches anyway. Next thing we want to do is make sure our front clip is going to be the right width. And what we're going to do there is we're going to reach over here and take our front and then our front two forks. And I'm moving the camera myself now. I'm going to put this right here, and then I'm going to bracket that with these two pieces, and they should line up with these front frame rails if we cut them right. Well, and if I can hold everything right. And everything, big thing right here is I'm not making it identical. I'm just trying to get it to make sure that we got our width correct. And if we box that in there, well, maybe I should have taped that down first. There we go. And right on top of this frame rail, I got one done. And there's the other. And as you can see, we're the right width. So this is done. And to make sure that we're right in the back, you see this piece right here. That's a metal bar right across there. We're going to take the one we cut for there. We're going to drop that in there. And yes, indeed, right on. You can see that fits flush in there. So we're going to have our width on the rear clip correct. And the last thing I always do is check around that fuel cell. And for that, we're going to take our two rear frame rails. We're going to drop those back here. And they can stick out a little bit for right now because all we're doing is checking our width. And then we're going to take our center bar and drop in there. And as you can see, it's accurate. So now we know everything is squared up. We're okay to start making our angle cuts and all of that. Now I know this video is starting to get really long, so I'm thinking I want to do this in 2 videos. I didn't plan on doing it that way, but there's a little more involved. So what I want to do now is go ahead, let me take the camera back down here a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and start putting the basic stuff together, and we'll just see how that goes here, and I'll figure out if I want to do this in 2 videos or go ahead and finish it up now, because this is going to take a little longer. Hold on. Hey guys, I forgot to tell you about the cuts. After we get all of our parts laid out here, and you saw where I got the front clip, it's about a 30-degree angle. What we're going to be doing is our cuts that make the front, you see where it comes up and back down, same thing in the rear. When we make our cuts, it's actually up front it looks like it might be a little difficult, but it's really not. You notice how I've got the cutter marked at 30 degrees. That's primarily for the front, and then I'm going to do about, I think it's a 20 on the very front, but I'll show you that later. And most of this for the rear clip, as you see, here's our rear clip finished. We got our fuel cell bay, and then the upper there, and that's at a 45 degree cut. So the whole rear end is going to be done on a 45, and it's really not that hard. And then the front's going to be 30 and 20, which is, and I know this may sound complicated, but I'll get into that a little bit more. But here's our rear clip pretty much finished. I need to drill the holes here and here for the jack screws, and of course back here. And this is just the most basic chassis, but the straps for the fuel cell that you see here, we can add those too, and we may get into that here in a little bit too. But right now we've got our rear clip finished. The front clip should be done here pretty soon, and we'll just go from there. Hold on. All right, so here is our finished basic, and I do mean basic chassis. There's no spring buckets, trailing arm, retainers, any of that kind of stuff on here yet. This is just the basic Laughlin chassis. As you can see, all of our bends 20 degree, and I'm going to go through these one at a time here. This is a 20 degree cut, and on any of your cutters it's easy to mark that. As you saw on the chopper, what I did was I took a piece of tape and just ran the piece of tape from the 20 degree, the 30 degree, and on this side I used the 45 degree. And so what you're going to do once you get your sizes of your plastic is right here, starting in the front, this joint right here is going to be a 20 degree cut. This is going to be a 30 degree cut. And when you do this, this piece right here, the straight piece, is actually, you can just leave it straight. You don't have to worry about a cut. And this is 30 degrees here and 30 degrees at the bottom. Now, this is 20 degrees. And I kind of played that by ear and then did a little sanding, but you can see it's nice and even. This brace down through here for the engine, well, let's do it this way. These are measured the same, and what I did there is just sanded them to where they would go in there. And you'll see these little round pieces that are, well, if I can get my pointer there, right here and right here. Those were little fillers, just the small tubing. And once I put a little more on that, that's going to go away anyway. And I did those on the bottom. Then, of course, these rails are were 70 inches, just straight. Now, from here back, well, these are just straight cuts here. But from here back, that rear clip we looked at, the rear clip is all 45 degrees. 45, 45 straight, 45, 45 straight. And then you just make your box for your fuel cell. And you saw how we slid that in on the chassis. In fact, if you look here, that's pretty much spot on. I moved these out to the centers a little bit. I thought it looked a little better, and the rears you see are the same. And then if we lay this right on top of this chassis, you see that everything is spot on. And this little extra piece of sheet metal here is not part of the chassis, but you see that's just the main part of the frame right there where the radiator would sit. And if you noticed, even though this is curved downward, this piece is laid in there flat. And the other thing you want to do is, now that we've done this, we know that this is, that's our size. And basically this was our jig, was right here. And these marks on your cutting mat, if you've got one like this is an Ulfa, but most of them have these type mats. You can line these things up, and notice this yellow line and this one, and boom, there they are, nice and in line with each other here and here. And I'm going to line this one up right in the center. You see that one right there? And then you can line these up in the front here. So everything is squared up. The other thing is, let's make sure that our wheelbase is still right. So we're going to come down here. Let me grab a piece of paper so you can see this thing. Sorry, I'm hitting the camera again. And right about here is where those spring buckets and the A-frames are going to be. So we're going to make that 0 right there. And then we're going to go back to right about here, center here, where the wheel, or excuse me, the, and I'm hoping you can see that, but right there is a 110-inch wheelbase, which is right here. That's going to be right there, which is about center. So that's pretty good. I'm very pleased with it. And we'll lay that on there, and we see our overall chassis length in 1/24 in inches is about 100 and I think that's about 176 inches overall, just the frame. When we take out the sheet metal up here, that's going to be about, if you can see it, because this is sheet metal back here. And, well, let's see if I can lay that down. That's where the front would be. And 176 inches is going to be right, well, I think I'm off camera there. 176 inches is going to be right about there, and then this would be sheet metal back here. So we're right on. So using this as a jig is always a good thing to do. Like I said, you can see there, that's spot on. And I think that white's not helping right now, but that is spot on the length. So this is good. The other thing we want to take a look at is, are we level? So I've got my little level here, and we're going to take this and we're going to lay it down. And I'm probably going to have to move the camera here so you can see we're good. Well, we're good. We're going to come up here, and once again, we're good. We're going to go to center chassis, and again, we're good. And right up, come on now, up on the top of the frame rail, and we're good. So we're all level there. We've got our basic stuff done. Like I said, the cage for the fuel cell, like we have on this one, as well as the spring buckets, and we'll be adding the rear spring buckets to this one as well. But this is the most basic part of the chassis without any of that. I'm going to let this cure overnight, and in part 2 we'll get into not only those items that I mentioned, but I also want to get into priming and painting in a bare steel color, and we'll look at some welds, the way I do welding is on these things too, as far as just bare steel. So hope you enjoyed it. If you got something out of it, leave me a comment and subscribe. Look forward to seeing you in part 2.